Welcome back to another episode of Her Expat Life. We are the YouTube channel that is dedicated to helping female entrepreneurs, expats, and digital nomads advance their global lifestyle with a host of information and a range of topics that we cover here for you. And today I have a very exciting guest who is going to talk to us all about trademark, but not in the boring conversational way that you might have heard people discuss it before. Marie has a very wonderful personality, so we're going to dive straight into this very tricky topic, very important topic, and hopefully offer you some education and entertainment along the way. Just to introduce Marie before we get into the discussion points today, she is a trailblazing trademark lawyer, traveler, speaker, author, and mindset coach. Catering to entrepreneurs with a lifestyle business, Marie runs her own initiative lifestyle law firm as a full-time jet-setting traveler, traveling around the world with her globe-trotting Pomeranian Frisbee. Marie is redefining the traditional lawyer-client relationship and breathing life into it by harnessing cutting-edge technology and her unrivaled expertise. Her mission? To educate, empower, and inspire her clients to discover and embody their own sense of greatness while enjoying the ride along the way. And on that note, Marie, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Alexia. I love what you guys are doing on Her Expat Life. I follow you guys on YouTube. I follow you guys on Instagram. So it's just such an honor to be able to contribute to the conversation.
Thank you so much. We love what you do. So it's a love relationship both ways. Yeah. Marie, can you tell us before we dive into the nitty-gritty of things, what's your personal story? How did you find yourself being a full-time traveler and a trademark lawyer?
Sure. So I'll make this really brief. I was actually working as a lawyer for another law firm. I got laid off 2 times before I actually opened up my own law firm. So I felt the feelings of rejection and I did not choose the entrepreneurial life. I kind of felt backed into it. But once I did it, it was in hindsight 2020, the best things I had to do. I just had to be told twice by God that I'm not meant to be an employee. So once I opened up my own firm, I don't come from a family of lawyers. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. So I was doing a lot of trial and error as I was starting out. And I started getting a coach to help me understand what is it that I want to actually achieve by being my own boss in my own law firm. And also knowing what do I need to be doing to make my law firm successful. We really got down to thinking about, what kind of law firm do I want to design for myself? Because our businesses are essentially made to support our personal vision. And so once I made that mindset shift, I knew that I just wanted to travel. I was just always happy to be exploring in another country, other cultures, other foods, other people, and just having that sense of adventure. And so when I had my own law firm, this was pre-COVID, I already knew that I did not want to have to be chained to a desk. I didn't want to have to be in any particular city or state or country in order to represent my clients and still show up for my clients. It began just designing how is it that I was able to have this virtual law firm before it was the cool thing to do. So this is like a few years before COVID, where I already had Zoom. I already started offering virtual consultations. And honestly, I was trying to get rid of these traditional things that make a lawyer successful. So the office and then the staff and all these files everywhere, just so much physicality that I was like, how am I supposed to travel if I have to be in a physical place and like watch over staff? So I really started building things piece by piece. It's not something that came overnight by any means. I definitely don't want to give anybody a sense of false impression here, but piece by piece, you start building a business that you've envisioned. So now I travel full time. Right now, I'm currently in Dubai. I just got here 3 weeks ago. Dubai is now my base. It used to be Morocco. Before that, it was Europe. Before that, it was Miami. And so the idea is to continue representing my clients, not just in the United States, even though, yes, I am a US lawyer, I represent them internationally. Also, while I'm internationally as well. So it's just a matter of managing the time zones and the calendar, and off we go with living a life that I literally have envisioned for the last 5 years. So this has been some time in the making that now I'm finally living the life that I've created for myself.
Amazing. I love to hear it when people are breaking down traditional barriers that we've been told are the ways to success and creating their own path.
I totally agree, especially if you are a female entrepreneur in a more traditional type of service industry. So we're talking doctors, lawyers, consultants, accountants, women who are in this very traditional square. This is how you are supposed to be successful, and you're supposed to wear your button-down shirt, even though I'm in one right now, and you're supposed to act a certain way and have certain things. And it's these societal types of misrepresentations that once you achieve those things, you automatically have success. And I had those things and I didn't feel successful because there took some courage in actually peeling back the layers of what is success to an entrepreneur, to you specifically as an entrepreneur. What does your success look like? What does that feel like? More importantly, what does it feel like? And so women having the courage to really step outside of the box, especially when they're in a traditional type of professional industry, it does require a lot. It requires a lot. And that's why I needed help when I started doing this with my coach, because it takes a lot of courage, and you're seeing your colleagues doing things that you're not doing anymore. And so it starts to creep in some things that can play on your psyche on whether or not you should actually be going forward with this or not.
Marie, let's deep dive into your area of expertise, which is trademark law. So let's start off maybe with some of the basics. So can you explain the importance of trademark registration for female entrepreneurs and brand owners in today's competitive market? What is it and why do we need to do it?
Yeah, so I'll start with what is it, because if we don't know what it is, we don't even know if we need it or not. So the trademark is essentially the face of your business. It is how your customers and your clients recognize who you are. And so it could be your company name, it could be your product name, it could be your service name. If you have really cool packages that you call these packages, as you're presenting them to your clients and your customers. It could be your logo, it could be your slogan or your tagline. It could be anything that your customers and clients are going to see out in the marketplace, and they're going to be like, oh, I know that brand. I know what to expect when I give them my money and I get their product or their service in return. I kind of know what experience I'm likely to have, because the brand starts building a reputation and it starts becoming the brand identity. All of that is encompassed under trademark law. And so the reason this is so important is because when you have a trademark, you are essentially holding out yourself as this identity, and it's what people are going to use as a way to differentiate you with your competitors. So this is also where we live in a free-flowing market. Thank God there's lots of entrepreneurs. There's an abundance of opportunities all over the place, as it should be. However, we want to be intentional with our brand and our trademark, with using it as a way to help us stand out among our competitors, so that the customers and the clients that we're looking to work with, they see us and they're like, that's the one. It's not these other people, it's this one. So the brand and the trademarking allows you to have ownership of that brand identity, so that nobody, your customers, your clients, your competitors, can steal it or copy it from you. And that's all going to be under the protections of trademark law.
Amazing. Thank you for that. How does trademark registration empower entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, to protect their brand from potential theft or infringement? So once you trademark your brand, how are you protected?
Sure. So the wonderful thing about trademark, once you are registered and you're protected, is that it gives you exclusivity. And who does not love things that are exclusive, meaning that other people just can't use this? When you have exclusivity over your brand identity, you are essentially keeping others from being able to use a brand that looks like yours or that is similar to yours. So trademark is also really beautiful in the fact that it doesn't just protect against someone copying your exact brand. It's also protecting against people who pretend to look something similar like you, just enough to confuse your audience to accidentally buy from them when they really meant to buy from you. So when you have exclusivity in your trademark and you see somebody using your brand without your permission, they're essentially stepping on your trademark toes, and you can actually approach them with the legal rights behind you and say, hey, you're stepping on my trademark toes. You're using my brand without my permission. You're confusing the marketplace because people are buying from you when they really should be buying from me. If you don't stop using my brand, I'm going to bring you to court, and I'm probably going to win because I've already proved that I own the exclusivity to be the only person in this industry to be using a brand that looks like this. So you really come out in a very powerful position when you are putting thousands of dollars in your marketing, when you're putting a lot of hours into creating content and to working with people who are going to be speaking on behalf of your brand and creating this reputation about your brand and what your brand represents, not just to the business, but also to your clients and your customers. You get to have control over that reputation. And that is one of the best things that trademarking your brand affords a trademark owner.
So I think maybe many entrepreneurs, particularly younger entrepreneurs, might be unaware that their brands can actually be stolen, right, without registered trademarks. Can you shed some light on this concern and its implications to someone who has not registered their brand?
Yeah, girl, buyer beware. Like, this is something really, really important because with entrepreneurship, there's so much that we are focused on, that there's things that we just don't know that we don't know, and trademarking is one of them. When you're trying to figure out if this is something that you need, the answer is yes. If you plan on actually becoming this recognizable brand, it is something that you are going to need. It's not an option. It's not an option at all. If you plan on scaling, this is something that's going to be part of your journey.
Absolutely. Basically, if people need to be more aware, or just raising awareness that your brand can be stolen. Yeah. So if you have not registered your trademark, your brand, and somebody does steal it, do you have any leg to stand on? Do you have any way of protecting yourself if you have not registered your brand?
So the best thing that I learned in law school all 3 years is to answer questions like this with "it depends." So when you are unaware that people can copy or steal your brand, you are in a very vulnerable position, not just in the marketplace, but also as an entrepreneur. Because if you think about it, your entire business is running off of the face of your brand. So everything behind your business, the experience that you give your clients and customers, they're all going to be behind the brand. And so what happens is that when you start getting clout and you start becoming recognizable, not just from your clients and your customers, but you know who's also going to be watching you? The haters and the competitors and the people who they see that you have a vision, they love your brand. And then if they do a quick search on the trademark office's website that you don't actually have any legal rights to it, and they beat you to the trademark office and they register it before you do, you are really in a tough situation because now you have to prove that they actually stole it from you. But if you have no records that you own it, how can you show that they stole it? So it's going to be really challenging, in a sense of it's going to be really hard to prove that someone else is copying it or stealing it. And this is something too that I see a lot with entrepreneurs, especially with women entrepreneurs, where we are just so wholesome and we're just so excited and we're just so naive, in a sense where we put our heart and our soul and our creativity and our beautiful feminine touch on this beautiful brand and creating something so recognizable and so unique. And we put so much energy into our creative process on what that brand means that we just would never think that somebody else would take it from us, because we would never take a brand from someone else. But people don't make decisions like that. People are not always with the same caliber of our values or our morals, especially when money is involved. And so, someone like me, I would probably be someone that says, I would never steal somebody's brand. But that doesn't necessarily mean that someone else who sees my brand thinks the same thing. No, especially if they are a shark, they're looking for the quickest way. They don't have to spend all that time making all the creativity because you already did it. You made it perfect. You made it beautiful. You made it attractive. You made it very unique. So you've already done the work. Now all they have to do is file it, say that they've been using it, go to the trademark office, get this application started. And if they beat you to it, you're going to have a really tough uphill battle on proving that they had access to your brand and they actually stole it from you. And the best way to resolve all of this is just to get it trademarked before any of this stuff ever happens. It's like an insurance policy. You hope you never have to go after somebody for stealing or copying your brand. But if you do, you have the receipts and you have the leg to stand on that's actually going to make your arguments proving that they stole it a lot stronger, and therefore also less likely that people are going to try you. We don't want, when people have their trademark registered, they have this R within a circle around it. And that literally serves as a forewarning. Hey, world, I've claimed my trademark rights under federal law or under international law or whatever country that you're registered in. And if you try to take this, I will go after you. So it's also a forewarning for anyone to make sure that they cannot do this. They should not be doing this. And the only way that you can have that R within a circle is if you're actually fully registered. So it's a lot of different things that come into play, but essentially not knowing that someone could copy or steal it or pretending that nobody would do this is a very, very complicated and risky way of approaching the brand of your business, which is everything that you're marketing, everything that is recognizable to your clients and your customers.
Okay, so I'm sure our listener at this point realizes the importance now of registering the brand, I hope. I have a twofold question for you. Assuming that our audience is based in America, what is the difference between domestic and international trademark? Is there a difference? And secondly, what is the process of getting your brand registered?
Sure. So there is a difference between a domestic trademark and an international trademark. So if you are located within the United States, it is going to be covered under federal law, which means that it covers all 50 states within the United States. That is the limitation in which you are protected. So if your brand is based in the US, but now you go to Spain, you don't have brand protection in Spain because you're only registered and you're only protected in the United States. So there is international protections, but there's not this blanket worldwide protection. That's something that does not exist anywhere in the world. However, when you are using your brand in different countries, that is also something that you're going to want to consider on whether or not you want to actually bring your trademark protections within that country. So yes, there is a difference in domestic in the United States trademark as well as international, because it's going to be exclusive to the country that you're actually in and that you're actually applying for the registration. The process for the registration is pretty straightforward, but it does take a while. So what you do before you even file an application is you want to do what's called a trademark search. So this, maybe your listeners may or may not be aware, but you cannot trademark something that has already been claimed by somebody else. So before we start the process, we want to make sure that this hasn't already been claimed by somebody, because if it is, we might be inviting a lawsuit. So we want to do a search. The trademark landscape looks like, and then we can see, okay, is this safe for me is this actually available for me to claim as my own trademark? Once we do a search, then we actually file the application. Once the application is filed, it's pretty much just filling in the actual application. You do have to be really careful when you are choosing who owns the brand, when you are choosing what categories you are being protected in. So for example, if you sell clothing, you are going to be in one category, but if you also have an online store that sells that clothing, you're going to be in a different category. So it gets a little bit tricky when you are choosing and letting the trademark office know what is your product and your service in the application. Once you submit the application, in the US, it takes a really long time. It's embarrassing how long it takes. You probably will not even get reviewed until maybe 9-10 months after you submit the application. So most of the time, it's just going to be waiting. Once you're reviewed, there's going to be someone called an examining attorney who represents the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and they're going to be reviewing your application. And what are they looking for? They're looking for reasons to deny your application. That is their job. That is what they do. And they We'll usually find it because about 80 to 85% of trademark applications get what's called an objection. An objection is just if the examining attorney finds anything wrong with your application or any reason to deny your application, they will send you an objection. If you get an objection, you have an opportunity to respond. If you don't get an objection, great, you move on to the next phase. The next phase of the application process is called the publication phase. This is where the trademark office will publish your brand and say, hey, everybody in the US, this brand owner wants to protect and get a trademark for this brand. If anybody has a problem with it, speak now or forever hold your peace. You got 30 days. If nothing comes in within those 30 days, great. You are now registered. That'll be the final step. But if somebody objects to it, if somebody says, hey, wait a minute, that brand looks way too close to mine, I actually have a problem if they get a trademark because now they're stepping on my trademark toes, I'm going to submit an objection. Then you pretty much have to go to court and file responses and provide evidence to see who is it, to see really if there's going to be any confusion in the marketplace. That's always going to be the question. Is there going to be confusion in the marketplace if both of these brands are registered trademarks? If there is, they go to court, they'll duke it out. If not, then they'll move forward and the application will actually get approved. So it's a pretty long process. Lately, it's been taking like a year to a year and 3 months for the whole application to go through. So it's not quick, which if you are considering doing something like this, the sooner you get started, the better, because it is an investment of time and money to go through this entire process.
So the first one that comes to mind is, imagine we are talking about an influencer who they themselves are their brand. They're not necessarily selling a service, but maybe their Instagram following and them just posting content is their brand. And they, first of all, I'm assuming they can trademark their personal profile, I guess, as a brand. And then how do we then differentiate if you have 2 or 3 influencers who are maybe both or 3 of them in the travel sphere and based in the same market? How do they deal with this when talking about things like influencers, which is maybe not a tangible product? It's a little bit, the lines are a bit blurred. What is the process there?
Yeah, so it does tend to get really blurry when we're talking about influencers. And the reason is because, like you mentioned, they're not actually, but they are. But how you formed the question is you said that they were kind of not really selling anything but themselves and their personality. That under trademark law is not going to be enough. However, when you work with a trademark expert, we will find ways in order to say, what is it exactly that you're selling? When people give you money, what is it that they get in exchange for that? Because it's not a piece of your personality. That's not what you're actually selling. So we would have to work with the influencer to see what exactly is it. Usually there's going to be a platform, there's going to be something else that the influencer is offering their audience. A lot of influencers nowadays offer some kind of course that's trademarkable, some kind of swag, whether it's clothing, hats, jewelry, that is trademarkable. But having a trademark just for your persona is something really, really challenging to claim under trademark law, because at the end of the day, we are trying to differentiate what is it that you are selling. And so you're not selling your personality. You're not selling yourself. You might think you are. Your followers might think you are, but under trademark law, you're not. You're offering some other kind of service. So there are ways to trademark your personal brand, as long as we find creative ways under trademark law that says, okay, this is what they're actually selling. The other point I want to make is that usually with influencers, they may or may not have a specific brand name. So they might just use their first and last name and that's their brand. Under trademark law, that's not the go-to for branding, right? Under trademark law, usually, this is very general, so usually you cannot trademark a name, right? The reason being is because what is that name selling? It's just representing a person. A person is on a product or a service, and therefore it's not covered under trademark law. However, we know big brands like that are names like Trump, right? So we know that Trump is a name. We know, for example, Paris Hilton, also a huge name, right? But what are they actually selling? They're not selling themselves personally. Paris Hilton sells fragrances. Trump sells, well, he actually doesn't sell the hotel, but he just sells the name in order to put it on a hotel. So that's one of the things that he offers: hotel services, buildings services, right? I would say we don't have to. I would encourage influencers to find a brand that steps away from their personal name. And I know that might be hard to hear because we got egos, right? But if we're talking about trademarking and building a brand on a large scale, usually if there's something else that is unique, that is not related to your first and last name, is going to have higher chances of being protectable under trademark law. And that's where you as an entrepreneur really benefit from working with a trademark lawyer who is also an entrepreneur like myself, because then we have to make some decisions, because at the end of the day, they're there to make money, right? We're all here to make money. We're all in business to get that cash. So then we have to balance, do we want a brand that, yes, will give us trademark protections, but we also want a brand that is recognizable and that is also going to bring along all of our audience to pay us. So that's where we have to then make some distinctions, because sometimes what's good for marketing is not necessarily good under trademark law, and what's good under trademark law may not necessarily be what's great for marketing. And so influencers lean towards the marketing. And so that's where you might need to have a nice balance on figuring out what is the best way to have a brand name that gives you the clout in the marketing area, but is also something unique enough to where if anyone tried to steal it, you could go after them under trademark law.
Perfect. That makes a lot of sense. So separating the business into kind of the marketing element and then the trademark sphere of it. Okay.
Yeah.
My next question to you, and I stand to be corrected on this, but I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I heard that Winnie the Pooh, the brand Winnie the Pooh, that the trademark had expired on the brand Winnie the Pooh. So that brings me to my next question of how long are you protected for once your brand is trademarked, and how long do you have leading up to this expiry date to renew, and what should people be bearing in mind? That it's, I'm assuming you're not covered for eternity, right? So just walk us through the process of the time period for being covered under trademark.
I was a big fan of Winnie the Pooh, and I didn't know that their trademark expired. But yes, so once you are trademarked, you are not trademarked forever. There is a certain amount of time in which you have that protection. Now, I'm mostly practice in the United States. Under the US trademark law, you get an initial protection of 5 years, which really isn't that long time at all. You get first 5 years. Then if you decide to renew, then you get protections every 10 years. So after you hit that 5-year mark, then it's every 10 years. The trademark office will let you know 1 year before it's time to expire that it's time to renew. And so this is also why it's really, really, really important to make sure that you're working with a trademark expert who is getting these official notifications, because if you miss that deadline, it's not the end of the world. Okay. I know I like to be dramatic in my personality, but not so much when in my work. It's not the end of the world. You can save it, but now you got to pay more money because you missed the deadline, you're late, and now there's a fee that you have to pay on top of it if you're within that window of forgiveness, right? So if you missed the deadline, but they give you a little wiggle room in which, okay, you missed it, and if you come back and you pay an extra fee, we'll let you have the renewal. So it's really important too, especially us as entrepreneurs, where why would we pay money when we don't have to pay money if we just have things marked in our calendars and we're vigilant, or we're working with someone who is taking care of it for us. We don't have to worry about these kinds of things.
Okay, so it does have a period, like you've mentioned, that you're covered for, and then you need to be vigilant outside of that period. My next question to you goes back to when you were saying when you get your trademark, you will be covered under a certain thing. For example, if I'm selling shoes, then I'm protected within that niche market, I guess. Is it something that people need to be aware of, that when your brand is expanding or when your product offering is expanding, that on the to-do list of things would be alerting the registration office that you are now expanding your product range And how do people go about this process? Do you need to file a new submission? Is it a simple process? What does that entail?
Yeah, so this is actually a great question because most of my clients, they come back to me maybe a few months later, a year later, and they're like, we have more products that we want to trademark. And so, the thing is that it's great that you're expanding and it's great that you're moving into other industries or other product lines. But when you file your trademark application, you are very limited in what is it that you are selling. And you're telling the trademark office, I am only selling shoes, which means that my brand protects me from anybody else trying to also sell shoes that look like my brand. So if I find somebody who sells, let's say, makeup, it's not going to be considered trademark infringement per se because they are in a different industry. So under the US, they really don't like to give exclusivities for anything. They don't like to have monopolies for anything. They like to have all kinds of things. So this is also why when you are filing for your application, you're very intentional about what are you selling and what are you telling the trademark office that this brand covers. So when you start growing and you step outside of that, you don't tell the trademark office, hey, we have an amendment. We want to change these things because now we're bigger. It doesn't work like that. You have to file a whole new application and then you add in those other new expanding areas. This is why my clients come back because they start off with shoes and then they go into makeup. So it's not a bad thing. It's just that you will have very, very narrow protections because the government does not want you to have a blanket protection so that nobody else could ever use this brand in any industry. That's not what they want at all. So the process will be the same. Once you are expanding, then you would just file for another application. You would wait the year again. Again, this is also why it's really beneficial for you to work with an expert. So when I'm in my consultations, I want to see what all are you selling? Like, tell me everything, because even us as entrepreneurs, we might have the actual product, but then we have some swag, right? And then we have some promotional items. So for example, her expat life, right? So you guys offer educational services, these platforms in which women can have these discussions, right? That is a service. And so if you have a brand, but now you're also offering pens and t-shirts and hats and like coffee mugs, are you really selling hats and pens and coffee mugs and t-shirts? No, you're just giving those away as promotional items so that people can come and actually sign up for subscribe to your YouTube, follow you on Instagram, come on to your interviews. So listen into what the services that you're offering to these wonderful female traveling entrepreneurs. You're using that as like bait. And so a lot of entrepreneurs tend to say, I want to protect everything. All of my pens, all of my swag, everything under the sun, I want to protect it. Well, we can do it. We can absolutely do it because there's no limit on what you can trademark. But when you are an entrepreneur working with a budget, because this is not the only thing you're going to spend your money on, you're also going to be spending money on hiring people and bookkeeping and marketing and all these other things, then it's also really beneficial to work with a trademark expert because they're going to be able to identify, that's actually swag. Nobody cares if they start making pens now with her expat life. It's not a big deal, but it might even be free marketing for you if somebody else starts using her expat life to sell pens, because at the end of the day, it's just going to be used as marketing materials. So that's also something that I think is not really talked about under trademark law. We always talk about protections and then protecting everything, but there's some things we don't need to protect. There's some things that it's just like, no, that's not actually what you're known for in the industry. You're not known for these pens or this t-shirt.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So we've been talking quite specifically about the US in particular. What's interesting about the world we find ourselves in at the moment is how globalized everything is. So even though you might be a business based in the US, maybe your primary market are US citizens, but I mean, people are shopping online, people are using platforms like Etsy, and maybe I'm here in Spain and I'm ordering something from an American artist who's created something. So how do we wrap our heads around protecting ourselves in such a globalized world when you're saying that there isn't one blanket protection for trademarks? So how does a business person or an entrepreneur wrap their heads around this? Because it seems quite overwhelming if I'm thinking I need to protect myself globally, but there isn't one size fits all way of doing this. Well, how do you advise business owners to start considering international trademark and not getting overwhelmed by it?
Yeah, so I love that we are now in such a globalized society. I mean, I'm an international traveler, so I love it. It makes it more easy for all of us to just be flowing through different geographic parts of the world, and I love it. And it's great for commerce as well. It's great for us to also have clients and customers that are not just in our hometown or not just in our home state or in our home country, that now we have a broader reach. It's great. And it can get overwhelming. I'm not going to lie. It can absolutely get overwhelming. But this is, again, why it's so great to have a trademark expert consultant in your corner, because they can rein you in. Because when clients come to me and they say, yeah, we want a worldwide protection because we want to reach everybody, and we're going to be the McDonald's of, clothing, right? It's going to be in every single country. I love those ambitious types of clients, but that's the ambition really does tend to get overwhelming. And so when I'm talking with them, I'm always asking, okay, but where are you, your company? Where's your company now? Well, we're based in Madrid. Great. Then let's definitely go ahead and get Spain covered. Now, where else are you marketing? Where else are you? Oh, we just mark online. Okay, that's fine. But where are your clients and your customers coming from? Oh, well, we actually sell a lot to Canada. We're actually selling a lot to the US. We're actually selling a lot in Portugal. So there's questions that I can ask them, and that a trademark expert can start asking to see where is it exactly that you need these protections, because are you really going to be harmed if you are selling your product in Spain, your clients are in Canada, the US, and Portugal? Are those same clients going to accidentally buy from a company that looks like yours, but they're not in Spain, they're in Australia? Probably not, because it's way further. How are they even going to get to know them? It's an idea of practicality. So does that mean that you also need to be in Australia, even though you have no customers there, you're not marketing there? It's just, I want to protect it. It gets a little unreasonable. So that's where it helps to have somebody who knows the market, knows not just trademark law, but also thinks of things in business practicality standpoint. Because it can get expensive, because it's not cheap to do these applications in any country. And it can get overwhelming as far as like, well, where do I start? Where do I go? Where do I need to do? This is, again, why it's really good to have someone in your corner who understands the business, understands the trademark, understands the vision that you have. So I had a client the other day. We did some trademarks for him in the United States. Then the next meeting we had, he was in Colombia. And then he's telling me he's having conversations with people that are interested in his brand in Colombia. That same day, we signed him up to start doing trademarking in Colombia. The following week, he goes to Mexico. And now he's having conversations with people in Mexico, and he's showing the brand, and he's talking about the brand, and he's getting people invested in the brand. Now we do an application in Mexico. So it's something really important. And I would also encourage all of your listeners that when you are working with an expert in whatever field, right now we're talking about trademark and we're talking about law, but when you are working with any expert in any field, it's really beneficial that as you grow, they are keeping an eye out for you, and they're saying, okay, now it's time for us to do this. Now it's time for us to expand into this industry or this market. And they can not just keep up with where you're at and where you're going, but pave the way so that as you are expanding into these international markets, you're doing it with confidence, and you're doing it knowing that you can sleep at night, that all this money that you're now pouring into in a different marketplace is not going to get pulled out from under you just because you didn't know that you should have trademarked, or you thought that the trademark you did in the US protects you in the whole world. So again, it's with entrepreneurship, we get overwhelmed with everything, like with accounting, with hiring, with human resources, with technology, everything. Especially women. I really want to make this point, especially with women, because a lot of society tends to make us think that we should do everything ourselves, and that we should be the superwoman, and we should know that we needed to do this, and we have to be an expert in this area, and we have to be an expert over here. No, ma'am. No, you do not. That's actually exhausting. And the reason I know this is because I've done it too, and I've been there. But this is also why it's really important to understand that you, as a woman entrepreneur, as a brand owner, as a business owner, you need to start delegating. Delegate and get these things that you are not an expert in, but you are a decision maker in. Delegate to somebody else so they can advise you, give you the information that you need to know in order to make decisions that's aligned with your vision, aligned with that bottom line, aligned with your goal, so that it's not so overwhelming and you don't have to figure everything out on your own. You just need to have people in your corner that you know, like, and trust, that can advise you. And then at the end of the day, you're the one making the decisions.
Mm-hmm. So, Marie, a good question to ask at this stage, I would imagine, is at what point in your entrepreneurial journey do you then bring in a trademark lawyer? Because I'm thinking probably closer to inception of your brand, because imagine I go out, I develop this whole brand, logo, name, look and feel. I'm so excited. I've done all this work. And then I go to a trademark lawyer, and the trademark lawyer says to me, I'm so sorry, but your brand is too similar to X, Y, and Z, and you've already spent all that money, all that time, all that energy, and all those resources. So at what point in the journey is it good to bring in the trademark lawyer?
I get asked this question all the time, and I love it, because this is one of the big parts that confuses us entrepreneurs, is when's the right time? We want to do it at the right time. There is no right time. It's not when you're a year into it, when you're 3 months into it. There's no timeline. The way that you figure out that you are ready to have a trademark lawyer in your corner to block trademark theft is when you feel that if somebody were to take this from you, you would be hurt, you would be dissatisfied, you would be angry, your vision for your business would crumble. That's the time. And that may not be an exception. That may not be a year into it. Honestly, the sooner the better. But if it's something where I have a client that says, yeah, I like the brand, but if we have to change it, we'll just change it. I don't want to work with you then, because that's the whole point of trademarking, is so that you never have to change it, is so that nobody else is going to take it from you, copy you, and that you are now looking like somebody else. So if that's the mindset, don't bother. Don't bother with trademarking. If it's not important to you that people recognize your brand, you don't need a trademark. If it's not important to you that if you put all this money into marketing, that you could lose all of it, have to start over with a whole new face of your business, if you don't mind, don't trademark it. But if these are things that keep you up at night, I put in so much blood, sweat, and heart and tears into this brand and what it stands for and what it means, not just to me and my mission, but also to the people who are giving me money to have access to this brand. It means something to them too. And if that is a place where you are in your vision for your brand, and having it copied or stolen is something that's not acceptable to you, whether it be that it hasn't even gone off of the pen and paper, it hasn't even gone off of the computer screen, if it hasn't even been developed enough, but you're so connected to your own brand that it would be heartbreaking that if somebody copied and stole it from you, that's when you need to have a conversation with a trademark lawyer. Whether you sell a product or not, whether you're marketing it or not, all irrelevant. All of that is irrelevant. It's when the brand matters to you and you want to keep it, that is when you have the conversation with a trademark lawyer.
Okay, Marie. What resources do people have available to maybe do some more research into what brands are protected when they're developing their brands, or when they're trying to just understand a little bit more about trademark? Are there any tools or resources that you would recommend that people keep an eye out for?
Totally. So I am a resource. So I share a lot of my information on my Instagram, traveling.trademark.lawyer, where I also have freebies as well. So the real indicator is also understanding the uniqueness of the brand. So making sure that it is unique enough that it stands out, that it's not going to be copied or stolen, because it is so unique. That is something that's a huge element, part of the trademark law. The other thing that's a really good resource, signing up for not just my newsletters, because I also talk about these kinds of things, but the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trademark Office's website. They're pretty good with some of their videos and explanations. The thing is that sometimes they do talk like a lawyer, and then it's hard to figure out what are they actually saying with all the legal mumbo jumbo. The way I'm speaking right now is the same way I speak to my clients too, because confused minds don't make decisions. So I don't use words that confuse people. I want people to understand. So I also, share videos and things like that on my Instagram, my YouTube, to give free resources. I also have PDFs of resources on a trademark spectrum. Where is it that you should be? I have another resource also as well, 10 things that you should know in order to block trademark theft. I'm happy to make it available for free for your listeners, because I think the more that we can educate ourselves and expose ourselves to other industries that are not our expertise, but are important, that impact our business, the better we are as entrepreneurs, and the better society is of having entrepreneurs who are educated. So it's all a ripple effect.
Amazing. What we'll do is we'll definitely include the link to your website, your Instagram page, and any resources that you're happy to share. We'll include it in the description box for our listeners. Marie, as we wrap up today's discussion, is there any major takeaways or any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yes. So we talked a lot about the brand and being unique. And I want to go a little bit further than that and talk more to the entrepreneur as a person, which has a lot to do with authenticity. So we live in a world, especially with the age of social media, where we're not allowed to be authentic, and we're not allowed, or we're not celebrated for our authenticity. And I really want to encourage all of your listeners, especially entrepreneurs, especially if they are women, to really have the courage to step into their authenticity, whatever that may look like. Because one, we need you. Two, we need to see more people like you that are stepping into this authenticity. Mainly because when you present yourself as authentic, you are essentially giving permission for those around you to also show up authentically. And this also, it's all connected. It translates into your brand as well. It translates into the messaging around your brand identity. But it's really hard to do that if you don't have a strong sense of authentic self. So I would really encourage your women entrepreneurs who are also travelers to ask themselves first, what does it mean to be authentic? What does my shade of authenticity look like and feel like? And how can I expand that even more into more areas of my life, which include my business, which include my brand? Be authentic. It helps us all. I love seeing women who are so authentic because I also feel empowered just witnessing their authenticity.
Marie, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time to speak to us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Very, very informative. And what I love about your style is that you make speaking to a lawyer seem accessible when sometimes it can be intimidating to have these conversations. You very much know your audience, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And I really do encourage all of our listeners to reach out to Marie on the platforms and links that we'll connect below, and make sure that your business is protected. We're all working hard to develop these brands. Let's make sure that we're doing right for ourselves in the future. And on that note, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. Please make sure to visit our website, herexpatlife.com, to view our complete range of services that we offer female entrepreneurs, digital nomads, and expats. We are also launching an app really, really soon, so make sure that you keep up with us on all of our social media platforms to get more information on that. And with that, Marie, I want to say thank you so much again, and we hope to have you back in the future. It's been a pleasure.
Such a pleasure. Thank you again for the opportunity. Can't wait to talk to you soon.
Thanks, Marie.